And it's titled, A Child of God Travels to South Africa. And being who you are, right? How else can I go to South Africa and be anything other than who I am, right? And it fits in more or less with the passage today that the message is titled around, which is from 1 John 3, 1 through 7. And it's all about my identity, your identity as a child of God. And it brings to mind 4 aspects: peace, permanence, personhood, and participation. So follow along with me as we dig into this. Of course, we have to have scripture, right? So this is John's letter, right? John is writing letters basically to the various churches. And in this particular letter, we know we have 1 John, we have 2 John, we have 3 John. They're very short. You can read them in one sitting, probably all 3. And in this pastoral letter, there's a church conflict. And as you know, why would a pastor of churches in that area that we know, they write about conflicts, things that are going on in the congregation that need to be addressed. So there's a conflict. And John writes because he wants that conflict to settle down and not to spread. Now, one thing about this particular 1 John is scholars think it is a sermon in written form. And as we know, we do give scriptures and we package them up into sermons. But scholars believe that this particular set of passage was a sermon. The problems in the church at the time had to do with false teachers who had left the church. You can read this in 2:19, 1 John 2:19. These false teachers denied the incarnation and the deity of Jesus. And they said, we're not sinners. This is what they said. We're not sinners and we don't believe Jesus, came back from the dead. And they may have been persecutors of different aspects that plagued the 2nd century church. These false teachers remained very influential, as we know false teachers do. And the danger was that they would persuade neophytes, new Christians, to accept their heretical teaching, whatever it was. And this following packages of verses speak to things about knowing that Christ is righteous and know that everyone who practices righteousness is born of him, Jesus Christ. And these verses, although they're very compact, there's only seven of them, are really nicely compacted into 2 major things. We are children of God. Sin is lawlessness, and let no one lead you astray. So let me just quickly read through them here as you follow along. John writes, "See what great love the Father has lavished on us, that we should be called children of God." And that is what we are. The reason the world does not know us is that it did not know him. Dear friends, now we are children of God, and what we will be has not been made known. But we know that when Christ appears, we shall be like him. For we shall see him as he is. All who have this hope in him purify themselves just as he is pure. Everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. But you know that he appeared so that he might take away our sins, and in him is no sin. No one who lives in him keeps on sinning. No one who continues to sin has either seen him or known him. Dear children, do not let anyone lead you astray. The one who does what is right is righteous, just as he, Jesus Christ, is righteous. So there, John puts it out there, and it's wrapped up in this conflict, these false teachers telling neophytes a whole different story. So now let's see how I can wrap this up in my trip to South Africa. So as you can see here, this is a great map on the right-hand side. South Africa is a small part of the continent of Africa. The continent of Africa is huge. It's huge. You see these little airplanes flowing in and airplanes flowing out. So basically, I went on a 14-day Classic South Africa with Victoria Falls. I left March 27th and I came in March. I left Johannesburg April 10th, didn't get to the United States until April 11th. And I went to all of these various places. My flight out of Boston went from Boston to Amsterdam. That was about 6.5 hours. I threw up. I have motion sickness, which I keep trying to figure out how to fix it, but I'm obviously taking the wrong stuff, but never mind. And I won't go into the other gruesome details about the flight, but anyway, I got there. I got from Boston to Amsterdam. Then I had to take another flight from Amsterdam to Cape Town. So I'm crossing the entire continent of Africa, straight north to south. That took about 11 hours. That was a pretty easy trip. You're probably thinking 11 hours is easy. It was. I know there's some who've done longer, like Jean. Jean, I know you've flown much longer than that. And then I get to Cape Town, which is about 4 days. Do some things there, which I'll show. And then another flight from Cape Town to Durban, still in South Africa. Then up into, I can't pronounce these names, Hului, and then Mbane, which is in another little country inside of South Africa, another whole little country called Swaziland, inside of South Africa. Then out to Hazyview, which is the Great Kruger National Park, where all the animals are just free to roam wild in an area you cannot even cover and see with your entire eyes. Then a little bus ride back to Johannesburg, and then a flight to Zimbabwe where we have Victoria Falls, and then a flight back to Johannesburg, and then back to the United States for a 17-hour flight from Johannesburg to Atlanta, and then of course Atlanta to Boston. I'm here to tell the tale. I survived. So let's talk about number one, which is peace and hope. At the bottom there, you see Cape Town, and there's a little point that comes out where the number 4 is, right below that, and then the little point at the end is a place called the Cape of Good Hope. You see a little picture of me smiling. I don't know if I'm smiling because a jet lag has hit me, or I'm really like solidly there. But I'm resting on a sign that everybody is obligated to stand in front of this sign to show that you were at the southernmost point of the African continent. Now, the Cape of Good Hope marks the point where ships began to travel eastward and southward. And they round the Cape. And probably if you know about shipping and things, we have the Suez Canal. Anytime they put a canal anywhere, it's basically to try to shorten the path that ships have to take because it can be long and gruesome. So there really is no canal that you can find here for the entire continent of Africa. So people just got to kind of round it, right? And there were these Portuguese explorers. One was called Bartholomew Dias. Some of you probably remember him from high school history class or whatever. I don't remember any of this. I don't know. All my history in high school is like that. There was a king there that told Bartholomew, he said, if you round the Cape, you've got good hope of getting back. And I stand here before you thanks to God. Peace and good hope came to me as I rounded my round trip from the United States to South Africa and back. So I feel like I met the first criteria here in my identity with God, peace and hope. The Father calls us children. And we know the Father does not tell a lie. Being a child of God is the most fundamental truth of our identity. We may not always experience being known by others in this way, but it's not changed the reality of who we are. We cannot expect the world to tell us who we are. We do not belong to the world, we belong to the Father. The world, with all its allure, will clamor to have our place, our identity in anything other than Jesus Christ, the true Lord and the King of this world. So I go to South Africa and I try to take with me my Christian identity as best I can. So now I want to introduce you to our members in South Africa. So verse 1 says, "See what a great love our Father has lavished on us, that we should be called the children of God." And that is what we are. So I diligently, it took weeks and weeks to get contact with our denominational leaders in South Africa, our brethren there. They have a couple of church groups. They have the East and the West and the North and the South or whatever. I couldn't figure it out, but eventually I tried to find the congregation that was nearest to the hotel I was staying at in Cape Town. After numerous emails of not getting a response, some of you know how diligent and persistent I am. I got the South African operations who connected me with Trevor Weber, and he comes with his wife, Virginia, and he is the South African Regional Director. There's him kneeling with that great smile, and then Virginia is in the orange shirt. They gave me Trevor, and there's another guy on the far left of this picture, standing next to a woman that's lighter skinned than anybody there. They gave me what I consider the behind the scenes tour of Cape Town. As a tourist, you get the kind of prettified version of any area, but they gave me a grittier view of Cape Town because they lived it. They lived apartheid. They lived the laws that impacted Blacks and colors. They call them colored people, not the way we use colored here in the United States, but the way colored was used in South Africa. There were several heinous laws that directly impacted people who were non-white. And I just want to go through them a little bit here to acquaint you with how identity gets mixed up and how we as children of God, and if you read the Bible, you see various identities of people where they've had to hold on to who their true identity was. A quick definition of apartheid. It means aparthood or separateness. It was a system of institutionalized racial segregation that existed in South Africa and Southwest Africa from 1948, and can you believe it, until 1990. It was characterized by an authoritarian political culture which ensured that South Africa was dominated politically, socially, and economically by the nation's minority, the white population. There were, in essence, 4 acts that made, if you noticed, all of the people there other than me have a certain color to their skin. And it's not by accident. It is, in essence, deliberate, and it comes about by these 4 acts that South Africa had. One was the Population Registration Act, which came in 1950, that required each South African to be classified and registered in accordance with their racial characteristics. Hair, nose, skin color. Wow. And if they put a pencil in your hair, did it fall out or did it hold? You would be classified one way or another, just based on that. And if they couldn't figure out what you were, you went to this tribunal of 4 white men who would say, you're Black, or you're white, or you're Asian, or you're Indian, or you're something else, we don't know, or you're colored. And that was the system. And if any of you been to any of the islands, you could have a family that your brother or sister could look completely white, or you could have a brother or sister that could be brown or yellow or whatever. I mean, it's just what it is. And there you could see what's happening here. People being ripped apart, people were classified, etc. What identity is that? So there was black, white, colored, and Indian. That was the first act. The second act was called the Group Areas Act, which impacted a couple of the members here, including Trevor and another member there. This particular act impacted them greatly. It was called the Group Areas Act, and it separated white areas from Indian, black, and colored areas. It displaced thousands of people, breaking up friends, families, and communities. They gave me a tour of their family home that was ripped up from them because of this particular act. Then there was another act that came about much earlier in 1913, which is called the Land Act, which prohibited Black people from buying or renting areas designated as white. And then four, there was the Mixed Marriages Act. These individuals that you see here that are lighter brown, whatever, had intermingled with whites or others before this particular Marriage Act or Immorality Act took place, where whites and blacks could intermingle, they could socialize, they could get married, etc. And when the leaders of apartheid saw this, they said, "Oh, this has to stop." And so they came about this law which says you can't intermingle. But these people back then had already intermingled, had already married, had done whatever, and then everybody else afterwards had to stop. So all these man-made ways of classifying people based on this or that are false in relationship to our identity as children of God. Being a child of God is not potentially some idealistic dream of the future. It is our identity now. We may not fully see our identity, but we can trust that it is God the Father who has made us to be, as you know, an image of Him. We are included in the sonship of Jesus and therefore share in the very life and relationship between Father, Son, and the Spirit. Our identity of being a child of God will never be revoked away any more than Jesus will cease to be the Son of the Father. The full revelation of who we are as children of God is grounded in a face-to-face relationship with Jesus. Our personhood is fully seen in the person of Jesus. Now all of these apartheid acts have been wiped away, but as we know here in the United States, it takes a while for full restoration, for people to be at peace with the changes. Permanence and personhood. My dear family, they greet you as you would expect what they would. Gracious people, I went to two of their homes. As it says here, Virginia and Trevor are nomads. They rent out their home to various people and they travel around church planting and doing other things, which they feel they can do better if they go to where the people are, rather than staying in Cape Town, etc. Virginia's a great cook. Then I went from that home, which was a home they were able to buy in a white area, now is open up for everybody. Then I went to the man on the right and his wife, which is next, the left side of Virginia. They had a home, and that's where we actually ate. Of course, the food was good. And there was a lot of joking and laughter, and they ripped on each other. It was really beautiful to behold. Your church brethren in South Africa, Cape Town, greet you. Now I want to bring you to the fourth item, which comes to do with participation. And as you can see here in verse 2 and 3, it says, "Dear friends, we are children of God, and we will be, what we will be has not yet been made known. But we know that when Christ appears, we will see him, for we shall see him as he is. And all who have this hope in him purify themselves." So on this particular tour, there was an opportunity for us to visit some school children in South Africa. I was not able to go. Let's put it this way: COVID messed up a lot of stuff. So you could imagine it was difficult to meet children at the time, et cetera. And then when things opened up, they really didn't change that. But I had prepared 24 little treat bags to give to the children. And on our visit to Soweto is Southwest Township in Johannesburg, and our step-on tour guide by the name of Adani Shade offered to give my 24 gift bags to the youth that he works with. And I have a little video clip of them thanking me. Will it work if I click?
Yeah. Ian's in food.
Thank you,
I don't know what they said. I think they said, thank you, Miss Connie. I think that's what they said. But it just, when I gave Adani the gift bags, he was overwhelmed because you could see the background, etc. These are not rich kids or anything like that. And he and the grace, whatever it is, I can't tell if he's a spiritual man or anything, but look, anytime you work with children and youth, you are, in a way, doing the Great Commission, which is to reach out to those who are in need. And when he saw my little package, basically what was in the package, you're probably wondering, well, what did you give, Connie? Well, you know those little birthday treat bags, and inside it was a little booklet and a pencil and one of those little bracelet things, and a little thank you note for me being able to actually give this to them. And when Adani saw it, he said, "Oh, whoa, okay, I'm gonna give one to my son." Like, okay, I must have hit the jackpot here. So talking about participation, the Father did not claim us as his children just so that we could put us on a shelf for decoration. He created us to be a real participant in the divine life. We are made to participate in the very life that the Son has with the Father. As we participate, we are truly being who we are intended to be. It was my great honor to do this. I'm not bragging, but I don't think anybody else thought about it, did anything, or cared that we were visiting these school children, or that maybe it would be good for us who have much has been given to us, blessed, that we would offer it to others. This is the good life of faith, hope, and love. We don't have to create this life for ourselves. We participate in it as blessed children of the Father, for who that is indeed who we are. Children receive all their Father has to give them. They do not have to earn it by making a name for themselves. So now just a couple of other little pictures here I want to share with you. You'll probably find some of them fun. I don't know, maybe you won't. So here's another little, I'm in Cape Town. Now, you know, everybody knows Faneuil Hall in Boston, right? I remember when I came here decades ago, I don't know if the waterfront, the Boston waterfront, had been jazzed up like it is now, but most towns, they have waterfronts. They're pretty junky. They were for cargo and shipping and whatever, and then wow, we could turn this into a tourist destination. So now we have Faneuil Hall and everything, and I think the same thing happened in the Cape Town waterfront. They named it Victoria and Alfred. Now, some of you are probably thinking Victoria and Albert, but Alfred was the son of Albert, and they named this area Victoria and Alfred. I don't know exactly why or how, but it seemed to do with, you know, who was ruling or whatever. But this area is a great tourist area. They've got lots going on, lots to see, etc. And so as you're strolling through, as you would Faneuil Hall, I came upon some street artists, right? And decided to join in. Let's see. I don't know what I'm doing. Right, so there you have it. forever captured there in South Africa at the Victoria and Alfred Museum, Alfred Waterfront. It's good to have friends with you on the tour because they could take these pictures. Like if I would have just probably would have never had that. Here's some additional photos here. That's me standing in the waterfront. You can see the water behind and the boats and things like that. We went to a place called Table Mountain. You can imagine this area. It's a bowl, right? It's a bowl, and then all of these mountain ridges, etc. And then because of wind and erosion, you have a flat top on it. And we're taking one of these Swiss aerial trams up to the top, and that's what you're seeing there. You can see the surface of the side of this Table Mountain. That's me looking confident that I will make it to the top. And we also went to a little area, another bay area on the Cape Peninsula, which was beautiful. The clouds were gonna burn off eventually, it was in the morning. And then that's a little shot just to prove that I was somewhere in Cape Town. And then we went to Victoria Falls later on, and you see me with this, you're looking like, why does she have this green cape on? And if you've been to Niagara Falls, to get wet, you kind of have to get in the boat, go up near it, and then you'll get wet. Here, you walk along like a mile, because I turn on my walker, my pedometer, and it's a walk long path to all of these stops. And at the beginning, you're like, oh, you're nice and dry. You're like wondering, why did they give me this poncho? Later on, you are going to be drenched. You don't know if it's rain or actually it's water spray coming off the waterfalls. It's that powerful, that big. And at this point, I'm drenched, completely drenched from the knee down, etc. But it was great. So that's Victoria Falls. It is a wonder to behold. And then, of course, elephants. This is in Kruger. This is not like our zoo. I just want everybody to make sure this is not like our zoo. This is basically wild animals doing what they do, protecting their baby, etc. Now, verse 4, which talks about everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. But you know that he appears so that he might take away our sins. There was, in the way to the Apartheid Museum, there was a little walkway that showed various aspects of history prior to apartheid. There was this skull nicknamed Mrs. Please, which is one of the oldest skulls found in the world, and it was found in South Africa. And it's a fossil that they've been dating, okay, Homo sapiens, whatever, blah, 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 and they had a replica of that. I went at the Apartheid Museum, there was an entrance showing the examples of Blacks and whites going through different turnstiles. And when we went into the Apartheid Museum, they gave you a ticket. One ticket said whites and one ticket said for Blacks, and you just kind of went through these paths. And then they had these passports that people had to use to go from place to place. They were called internal passports. And if you were not able to show that wherever you were either imprisoned or killed or whatever. That's me at the Nelson Mandela's house. They had it wasn't a replica, it was actually his house. They turned it into a museum, and that's him at the back when he was younger, not after he had gone to prison. And now I have another little area where we went to the Swaziland, and there's a video here of the cultural village that we visited to that had about the traditions. Do I have to click this or you have to do something?
Just hold it.
Sure.
I will have to click it.
Okay. There you go. It's a short video. Yes, so it was kind of weird to be in a place where you have high-rise financial district, and then on the other hand, you have people still living in thatched huts in a tribal community, following the rules and the regulations of that particular area. And then, of course, there were zebras and things like that roaming around. And then this is just another collection of scenes here, another falls. I'm clinging to the fence there. We were wondering like how many cell phones had dropped into the gorge as my travel companion was holding hers out to get the best picture. All I could think of, someone was bumping and down it went. There was one of the things you have to do is the big five: rhino, not warthog. We saw a lot of warthogs, rhinos, hippos, elephants, giraffes, lions, etc. And the prized animal to see is the leopard, because he's very elusive and doesn't come out a lot, and we actually got to see the leopard. The bottom of that is this carport. You know, a Mass Pike, everybody knows about Mass Pike, right? You have a rest stop where you go get gas, get something to eat, etc. Have you ever been at the rest stop where behind the scenes is a wild animal preserve behind the rest stop? That's what this one was. Penguins, and then the little hut there in Victoria Falls with mosquito netting. Let me end this with verse 7, which seems to be important. Dear children, do not let anyone lead you astray. The one who does what is right is righteous, just as he is righteous. False teachers are a problem for every age. Our culture today is highly secular. It calls us to tolerate every kind of behavior and every kind of belief. It excuses every kind of behavior. It tells us that we have no absolutes, that people should be able to follow their own star and do whatever they think is right for them. But John was saying, do not be led astray. We have a righteous God that we trust and obey and believe in because we are his children. So my identity as children of God, we have peace, we have permanence, we have a personhood, and we have participation in the great triune God. May they be part of you this post-Easter season and beyond, dear children of God. Thank you.